To stream. There we are. Oh, I have arrived. Finally. Slight technical hitch there. Oh, loads of people here already. Loads. Hello, everyone. This is my favourite bit, when everybody comes in and says hello, and this whole kind of global community starts connecting with each other, and we all find out where everybody is. So if you're coming in, some of you have already, Unmutual from New Orleans. Fabulous. And Penzance in Cornwall. And all sorts of people coming in. I'm going to try and say hello to loads of people. I'm going to sit and waffle for a few seconds while people come in. It's kind of, hey, tea with the Druid with Kerry, yes. Hey, Louisa, John, Julia from darkest London, Switzerland, South Wales, Bromley in Kent. Oh my goodness, loads. Alabama. Hello, everybody. Mount Shasta. Oh my goodness. Belgium, Slough, fabulous. Hawaii. Oh my gosh. Aloha. Germany, Portugal, Canada. Oh my goodness, so many people from so many places. I love this. This is just awesome. It's just amazing. Oh, Kathy, hello. from lovely America. There's just Costa Rica, Spain, the Netherlands, Stratford-on-Avon, Atlanta. Yay. Hello, everybody. Right, I'm going to stop looking at those things pretty much now, because if any of you have watched me before, you know that I waffle on and I get distracted, and then I even though I have a kind of list of ideas, I kind of go off piste. Or look, but I can't help it. I'm getting distracted. Poland, France, just so many. Oh, look, good old Sussex. That's where I am in England. Oh, and here we go. Just loads and loads of people from all over the place. That's just fabulous. I love this. This is just fabulous. Right, I've got my cardi on. It's a bit chilly here in our lounge because we're trying to be frugal. So I have my lovely velvety cushion behind me. All the candles are lit, adding more stuff, more heat to the room, and generally just trying to kind of enjoy autumn and the oncoming winter without feeling completely bowed down by the weight of gas bills, etc., like everybody else in the world. You know, that's an interesting point of view, but I'm not going into that now because that's just contentious stuff. Instead, I am going to chat to this fabulous global community. I'm going to rattle on about animism, and for no particular reason other than the fact that I was reading an article the other day about the chap who I believe coined the phrase animism, Sir Edward Burnett Tyler. And his work, and so I'm reading it now. Primitive culture, bloody cheek. And I don't know how many Druids are animists. I don't know out there how many people in a modern spiritual belief system would call themselves animists in the Western environment. I suspect an awful lot more than people would imagine in the general rule of things. I mean, even people who don't consider themselves spiritual will still talk to the ATM machine when they're getting money out of it, or say sorry if they've bumped into a chair or something like that. And that's all part of a deep-seated kind of animistic view of the world. There's a definition of animism from good old Wikipedia. Let's just use that, because what a fabulous resource. So According to Wiki, animism, from the Latin anima, meaning breath, spirit, life, is the belief that objects, places, and creatures all possess a distinct spiritual essence. Potentially, animism perceives all things, animals, plants, rivers, rocks, and weather systems, and the like, human handiwork, and perhaps even words, as animated and alive. Well, I completely agree with that. That's, as far as I'm concerned, that's how I view the world. And just a kind of thing here, the contents of this video are purely the speaker's personal point of view and bear no relation whatsoever to the general populace. So, like I say, I suspect there's an awful lot more animists out there than anyone actually really suspects. And I kind of felt like I acknowledged my animistic outlook on life very young, actually. I mean, I always had this connection. I always felt like, I spoke to my pets or whatever, and they spoke to me, and I've always believed that the plants around me have as much to say on the world as I do. And I've always, I mean, even chair, I literally do, kind of apologize to the chair if I knock into it, or if I'm being clumsy. So my worldview and my druidry is completely based in animism, to the point where I actually find the human realm almost more difficult to deal, well, completely more difficult to deal with, actually, I think, if I'm honest, than I do the rest of the world. I seem to understand a plant or a dog far more easily than I understand human beings, for the main part. Maybe that says more about me than it does anything else, but we'll leave that there. But I think what consciously kind of poked my animistic, kind of analytic thoughts about it was watching Tales of the Unexpected, when this chap invented a machine that could hear plants. And I was like, oh, okay, that would be a scary thing. Even though I kind of feel like I talk to my plants and they respond in a positive way. But actually hearing them speak, ooh, not just kind of using my imagination to kind of guess what they're saying. That's an interesting concept, isn't it? And how do I feel about that? I feel like it's absolutely true. I feel like absolutely plants speak to themselves, and recent research has actually really started to bear that out to be true. Trees do communicate with each other, particularly, and with the world around them. More of that later, I think. But I also remember reading Hermann Hesse stories about the one where he takes the alchemist pill from the museum, which he shouldn't have taken, and he then starts to actually hear the language of animals. He goes to the zoo and he hears this gorilla talking to him, and he's completely amazed that he can now hear all of these and understand all of the languages of the animals all around, and they kind of, and their thoughts about us. That's, we're always thinking of it from the human centric point to the other way out, but it all turned around, and he was hearing what they thought about us, and what, how their opinion was pretty low, actually, considering, well, based on the fact that they were all in a zoo, I'm guessing. But it's like, it turned him mad. it turned him completely bonkers in that story. And he ended up in a lunatic asylum. Not a very positive thing, if you think about it, for for an animistic idea. But the idea and the notion of being able to be that connected and to understand the language of the world around us, for me, is a really powerful notion. And how much would change in our world if we truly, truly did commit ourselves to listening with an open heart and an open eye, uh, um, and open ears to what was being said all around us, to what the rivers were saying and what the animals were saying about our behaviors towards them and towards the land, the living land as a whole. And I mean, this is not a new concept. This is as old as humans have been wandering around. We are animals. We are part of nature. So there is a language, but in a Western mindset, it has slipped further and further and further away from us with the influx of more. Try to be polite about this, but more mechanistic and more usury views of the world. Um, I think there are religions that take the view that we are the apex creation and that we have the right to use and abuse everything, regardless, just because we can. And my point is, as a Druid, how do we take an animistic point of view and a feeling about the world we live in, and use our Druidry to make it better, to help the world, to help the human species be less selfish and less unkind, to put it nicely. Um, how do we help that? How do we use our Druidry for a positive force in the world? And how can animism be an absolutely fundamental part of that? Because for me, well, I think it's easy. I think it's helping people to see, particularly if we are around youngsters, who have never had to think that way, who have always been given to the idea that you know you have a want, you have a desire. Commercialism tells you that you should be able to have that thing regardless of the cost to whatever. Being ignorant of the cost of what it is, I mean, it's one thing using a thing, but it's another thing to consciously use something, to consciously be aware of where that comes from, and to change attitudes. Like my one of the neighbors that we know, who said of someone feeding the hedgehogs and the foxes outside in the road, and this I quote, "I don't want my children to be worried about animals outside the house at night. I don't want them to know that that kind of thing's going on." What? Um, why would you teach your children not to want to know that there is other life going on? Wouldn't you want to encourage them and make them excited about that, excited to know that the snuffling and the noises outside are, animals going about their business, living their lives, and eating up the slugs and snails, and so that they don't eat all of mummy's plants, or that kind of thing. Why would you instill a fear and loathing of nature and the natural world and the natural processes, and make them terrified of what could be out in the dark? What a strange notion. think we really, really seriously need to help people who have, there needs to be an intervention here, people, I feel. And I think that one of the things it occurs to me that we can do is to educate in as peaceful and as gentle a way as we can. Whenever we're around people, it's kind of like by being enthusiastic about, the shapes in the clouds and what that cloud potentially could be as regards weather. So if you're talking to a kid and there's massive, great rain clouds out there, and they're kind of looking at this big grey cloud and going, "Oh, I don't like the look of that." And you're going, "No, this is amazing. Look at this kind of incredible way the world works, and this could happen and that could happen, and there'll be rain which will feed the plants, which will feed the waters of life and the fish, and to tell them stories about how life works and how at certain times of the moon all of the life in the oceans spawns and new life is created because they've seen what phase the moon is, the light that's reflected or not reflected on the beaches, and how the turtles are kind of born at those particular times. I mean, that kind of enthusiasm, that kind of love for the world and how it works and how we are part of it, and not to be afraid of it. The idea that we create our gardens, not anymore. There's a growing thing of not keeping your gardens too tidy anymore. It's about, making sure that there's space for the bugs and the bees and the frogs in the pond, because when you bring them in, there's a whole balance of things that happen, that the cycles continue, and that all of this happens without us. You know, we may be apex at the moment, dinosaurs were once, but apex is only an idea when applied to predators from my point of view. It's kind of like we may be quite developed and have opposable thumbs, which makes us be able to do all sorts of funky things, but that doesn't necessarily translate that we always do things that are kind or empathic. And even to showing us ourselves or our young ones around us, whether they're our children, grandchildren, whether they're nieces, nephews, or just friends' children, we can show them how life doesn't actually have to be about species or about differences. There are beautiful, beautiful YouTube videos of one particular beautiful one, which I absolutely adore, is Peggy and Molly. Peggy is an English Staffy um, bull terrier in Australia, and this beautiful little dog has an absolutely glorious friend, which is an Australian magpie called Molly. And these two are inseparable. They are absolutely inseparable. They have the most amazing relationship, and there are loads of videos on YouTube about their fun, their crazy antics and things that they get up to. I love it. And there are so many of these things. There are so many stories and illustrations where, for instance, there was a deer who could see that this duck was on her own and was trying to insulate her eggs on her own and couldn't go and feed. And what this deer did, this beautiful deer, saw this duck's plight and helped nurture and incubate her eggs. So the duck would go off and feed, and this little deer would make sure that the eggs were looked after. And there are many instances all over YouTube that we could show kids and other people and say, this is how empathy works. This is how compassion works. This is how we see somebody who we have no particular connection or nothing in common with, and yet we can understand their plight and their difficulties and give them a small piece of ourselves to help make their life a bit better. And and that should go for everything from the tiniest microcosm of a garden to the grandest, the entire globe. I've gone on a complete rant and it's 20 minutes already. I can't believe I yacked on for that much time. So Druidry and animism for me are absolutely hand in hand. They are fundamental illustrations of how we can use our Druidry without shouting at people, without banging on and virtue signaling and all of the other stuff, which actually a lot of the time can make people shy away and kind of go, oh, I don't want to listen to you because you're yelling at me. That these are beautiful stories, beautiful narratives that can build empathy and show us better ways to interact with our entire nation, show children that and other adults that an orangutan isn't just a nuisance because it's in a forest that we need to chop down to make garden furniture, to make money, because it's all about humans making money apparently. But it's a living, breathing, feeling, sentient being that needs to be looked after, and that the way we look after that and the stories we tell people about how they are looked after and how we have been, less selfish in doing that is there's a growing movement to give to make laws and to give forests, rivers, animal species the rights, the same rights and laws of protection that human beings have. Absolutely the same. So that when you harm that thing, you are breaking the law. And those things need to be encouraged. And they are based in animism. They are things that are based in an ancient, some would say primitive. I don't think there's anything primitive about it whatsoever. It's a basic understanding that we are part of nature and nature is part of us. And when we start giving ourselves permission to tell stories and to educate ourselves and other people around us in this gentle way, we are bringing things back to a whole. We're bringing things back together. And I wrote something down here and I highlighted it, and because every now and then you just get a spark of something, and I said, when we speak of this, how I wrote it down, when we speak of how a forest is a community all working together to feed and support each other through the mycelium network, where chemicals are passed, from hither and yon to the trees that need it most. Everybody seems to think that the forest is in competition with itself, but it isn't. Or even the different species of trees communicate through the mycelium, and through and chemical responses, so that when there's danger around, everybody in the forest knows. There is a chemical response where people are well, tree people or mushroom people are sending things around to let people know that there are pests in the way and to up their chemicals so that they can repel the pests that are coming through. If a deer is coming and nibbling at one particular tree, that will send an onward message to other trees and say, the deers are out, and the leaves go bitter. And it's an incredible communication through all forms of life. And Animism is about opening our perceptions, opening our eyes and our ears and our senses all the way through. And when we do that, we tell these stories of the woodland. We're updating the myths and legends, because these are the other worlds we're talking about. You know, that there is a communication on an otherworldly level. And otherworldly just means it's not our world in a conscious sense, but it is our world in a sensual sense, if that makes any sense. So as Druids, what we're doing is modernizing the myths and the legends of the unseen, of the other world, and all the knowledge that that contains. And we're not living in a fantasy where all of this is some kind of mad idea over there. It's actually being proved scientifically nowadays, which means as Druids, we're not divorcing ourselves from reality. We're actually enhancing our reality by giving ourselves a broader language. We're embracing a fuller, truer reality. And that is something that the bards did. You know, the bards of old sang of being the wind. They sang of being the tree or the ocean, the foam flying. And I think that's probably somewhere, that's a point where I can kind of stop yapping now and maybe do a short meditation, which I should have been doing a while ago, but I've just realized how much I've yammered on. So with this animistic thought, maybe just let's sit down, get relaxed, close our eyes, and take a long, slow breath. And in that breath, imagine yourself sitting on the earth. A long, slow breath with the earth. And in that long, slow breath with the earth, the sense of self, the sense of being separate from this earth that we stand on, that we sit on, that we live on, that nurtures us. Let that separation fade. With every breath, feel the earth pulsing, things moving and speaking in another language, communicating with every plant, every tree, with the breath of life. We feel more at one as we sit in our minds, in our senses, in communion with the earth beneath us. With every breath, the earth reaches out to us and we open our senses wider and further, allowing the earth to sing, to ring, and to reach us deep in our hearts, in the very fabric, in the very being of us. With every breath, we are more in tune, more connected, more at peace. With every breath, we understand the diversity and the beauty that we live amongst and are part of. At any time, we can open our senses. At any time, we can open our hearts. With every breath, we take in the sounds, the sights, and the experiences of being at one, in communication, never apart from this beautiful earth. Allow yourself to sit for a few moments. Allow your senses to respond to unknown languages. Let them reach and find your heart and mind and spirit with every breath. And now feel yourself drawing back in, bringing yourself back to this moment. Let yourself keep the memories, keep the understanding, keep the sensation of being connected to this beautiful earth. Know that you are one with this planet, never separated, always connected with every breath. And bring yourself back to this moment, back to the place you are sitting in. Bring yourself awake, conscious, and fully present. This has been me rattling on far too long about something I am completely passionate about. I hope you are too. I think I'm speaking to kindred spirits. I'm absolutely sure of it. But if I'm not, if you are not sure about animism, you think it might be a whole bit of hooky, I ask you to maybe do that meditation in a place where you sit with the trees. Do it for longer and open yourself further to the language that is all around us in so many different ways. And maybe you'll have a fabulous, magical experience like the many I've had with animism. And I thank you all, really thank you for being here this evening, for joining me in my ramblings, and I hope I will see you again at some other point, and I will have a look through any I haven't at all looked at any of these lovely comments, but I will do in a minute. But whatever happens, I wish you a beautiful, wonderful solstice that's coming up far too quickly, and when I see you again soon, probably be the new year. Many, many hugs and loves out across this fabulous community, across this lovely world. And I'll say goodbye for now. Thank you very much for listening. This is Cerri signing off. Take care. Bye.